Okay, so today we're going to spend some time working on continuing the Sayit application, and let me just tell you kind of the major pieces that we want to accomplish. I think we'll probably split this video up into several shorter ones. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping just to kind of make some stuff a little more efficient, make the display a little better, but ultimately we want to get to the point where we can now delete posts that have been made and also update posts that have been made. Another change is we need to learn to repopulate a form if the input fails. So when you do your server-side validation and you realize there's an error and you give the error message, it would be nice if the form would have the same data they started with, because usually what they need to do is tweak something. It's not okay, now you have to completely re-enter everything. Finally, we need to put together a solution for cross-site request forgery attack and learn how to handle that particular issue. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm here in my Sayit app, and I'm going to come to index. The first thing I wanted to change, which would be a slight improvement, it's not a big deal. This if statement right here is how we're checking to see if the form was posted or not, and that lets us know, okay, wait a minute, we're revisiting the page and there's data to handle. A slightly better way to check this would be there's an array called _server that has a whole bunch of stuff about any particular request, and we can actually look at the request method. And if that request method is post, then we know it's a posted form. That's a little clearer that's what we're trying to do on that if statement. A couple things about that. One is the triple equals is it just means that the values are equal and they have the same type. In this case, they should both be strings. I don't know. You'll see that pretty often, people trying to be explicit on that. I'm not sure it's going to make that much difference. A double equal would work fine there. But I'm going to go ahead and use the triple just to show you it. So I'm going to come back to my app here, and since I made a change, I'm going to go ahead and just enter some junk here. Say I want to say it. Looks like I still have some input up at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and pull that out, and then it looks like that part's working, so it's properly checking to that change. Another thing is, I noticed that my timestamp here has its resolution goes to 100,000ths of a second. I think that might be a little extreme, so we're just going to get down to seconds and chop off the rest of that. So what we need to do is move down to where we're actually displaying the timestamp and do a little massaging of that data. So let's come over here where we're displaying the timestamp. So right now we're just pulling the timestamp out of the database, and that's what's getting displayed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use our preg replace command, and the idea is I'm going to look for, here's the pattern I'm looking for, a period. Because period has special meaning in a regular expression, we're going to have to escape that with a backslash. Then it's going to be one or more characters, and that's going to be the end of that. So I'm going to anchor it at the end. So that's my regular expression, a period followed by one or more digits. That's at the end of my timestamp. What I want to do is take that pattern that I find, and I want to replace it with an empty string. So I'm going to put the empty string there, and the variable I'm working on is the TS variable. I'm just going to put it back in there. So real quick, if that change worked when I refresh, let's see, I'm not going to refresh, I'm just going to press enter. Here I get the seconds without the extra characters on the end. All right, so to be able to change or edit an entry, there's a bunch of ways we could kind of handle this. My thought is that we will just put a change button and a delete button beside each one of the posts, and by doing that, hopefully it'll let us do what we need to make those updates. So first thing, I'm going to go here is where I'm displaying each post, and if I'm going to put buttons in each one, basically I need to put those in a form. And this brings us to the interesting situation that I don't think we've seen before, which is we're going to have a whole bunch of forms on one page. Essentially, each pair of buttons is going to be its own form. And then likewise, we're going to have the form that's down below, that's kind of the main form where they type in information. So there's going to be potentially a bunch of forms all on the same page. Anytime you have a submit button in a form, it will cause only the form that it's in to submit, which is actually kind of the behavior that we want. So let's go ahead and see if we can make that happen. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and start a form. This form is still going to be a posting form, and we're still going to be self-posting. So we're going to just say as the action the current document that we're in. Now all this stuff that's going in the form, well, I guess the data is not in the form. We just need to have a couple buttons here. All right, so I'm going to give them button and name, and here's the reason. We're actually going to have a couple of buttons in this form, and we're going to have to figure out which button was clicked. Basically, if you click a button and you give that button a name, then it's going to produce a value in the $_post array. If the button's not clicked, it won't be in that array, and so we're going to have to use the name to help us figure out which button was clicked. So I'm going to have a modify button and a delete button. We're actually going to have at least one more value. There's an input type called hidden. This allows you to put data in the form that doesn't actually show up on the page. The reason we need this is because whenever they click the change button, we need to know which message they want to change. And the way we're going to keep track of that is, remember, each message has a unique ID in the database. We're actually going to store that database ID in the form in a hidden variable, and that way we can just pull that out. So when the form is posted, this message ID is actually going to contain the ID that came from the database. So in this case, I'm going to set the value, and let me go ahead and get all this closed up so I won't forget to do that. And then we're going to open a PHP section, echo, and I think we can just put the variable message ID here. Let's just go kind of make sure that's true. Message ID, where did it get set? Oh, I guess we aren't setting it. Okay, we're going to have to make sure we set that. Let's do that right up here at the top. It's going to have to be in the loop because each entry has its own message ID. So when we do our query, and again, if we go back and look at the query results and what comes in, this message ID was the very first column in the query. So we're going to do pg fetch result $i0. That's the index of the message ID. So that'll pull the message ID from the database, and that'll put it in the form. So now I think I'm ready to close my form there. What I'm going to do is, that's quite a few changes there. Let's just go ahead and refresh. Okay, now I have a bunch of change and delete, those are all there together. Let's just inspect this and see what we get. Notice it has a hidden element whose name is message ID value 20. That's the ID of this particular message. All right, I think that's working pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for now, and in the next video we'll take up where we left off.